Alrighty. What is going on today, YouTube? Hope you guys are doing fantastic. It is time for a tier list. We have not done one of these in probably over a month, maybe even been a little bit longer. But it's just about time before we get to these big sweeping changes in OB8, OB9. I give a little baseline with OB7 and we can see how much stuff changes. For better, for worse, stuff stays the same. Maybe something becomes actually viable. Just jumping right in, starting with ADC, the carry role. Personally, I think right now the two best carries, and it's not particularly close, are On Her and Bari. Bari kind of speaks for herself. I feel like if you ask anybody, Bari is very, very strong. But Bari, I think we can agree on. I think On Her is a little bit more out there, and let me just explain why. I think he has a really good matchup into most ADCs. He's one of the few characters that can actually beat Bari. He's also really strong early game with his passive, so it gives you a lot of objective damage also with his passive. And then I think he's a little safe in the late game. Maybe not like super safe. He's not Jing Wei or anything, but I think having, you know, your 1 for area control, your 2 for CC, your 3 to jump away, your 4 for CC immunity, I think all of that is enough for me to say On Her is one of the best carries in the game right now. When I play this character, I dominate with him. I think he's very, very strong. Is a S tier. I think she just farms really easily. That's why she's in low elo, and she's also going to be a good ban if you're low elo. Jing Wei, after her buffs, I think she feels a lot better. Crit feels a lot better. I think next patch, Jing Wei is going to be busted. I think right now she's just really good. She's a really safe pick. She farms, gets to the late game. She's very hard to dive. And then I think Neath Aspect has kind of flown under the radar for a while now, where I think it's very strong. I think it is very notable how good it is. You don't get great use out of the ultimate most of the times, but I just more think about it like she is dominant late game with how much attack speed she gets, and she has decent CC. And then in the early mid game, she can just set up kills with her ultimate to maybe get like an assist or a kill here or there to kind of, you know, kickstart her early game. So I think she's S tier. A tier quickly On Her Aspect, Artemis, CERN, Cupid. I think Cupid has fallen down a little bit after a couple of his nerfs, the Aspect especially. Danzaburo, Medusa. I'm officially saying a Danzaburo Aspect is slightly worse than Danzaburo. The extra safety of having the CC immunity, I think most of the time is just going to be better, especially in a meta like we're currently in. Poseidon Aspect, I'll need a little bit more time, but I think right now it is pretty underwhelming. Soul, I think she's just eh. Uller, I think there's even like an argument for putting Uller into C tier. I think he's that bad right now. And then I think Rama is a kind of a failed kit. I've not seen people even play Rama, let alone play well on Rama. I think he's very underwhelming. And then I think Neath is just a mid laner. Neath without Aspect is just a mid laner. Just player in mid. Going to support, Afro, Ares, Ymir, all the most busted. And I know Sobek not being in this overpowered tier is going to surprise a lot of people. I think Sobek's easier to play than like Ymir and Ares, but I think mid to top level, both Ymir and Ares have higher peaks than Sobek. Granted, if there was 4 spots I could put here, Sobek would be up here in this overpowered tier also. I just personally think he is slightly more obvious with what he's doing and also slightly easier to counter. So I do think he is probably the top of S tier. Could be an argument for overpowered, but there's no spot for all 4 of them. Aphrodite's still broken. Ares, after the buff to his 2, broken. Ymir, just really, really good. Very few counters against him. Baron, after his buffs, I think he feels really good. He's one of the few characters that you can kind of pick him and never feel like you're getting counterpicked. You just have CC immunity in your ult. If you get walled, you just pop your Phantom. Xerxes Hexstone is a really big positive for him. Also gives him movement. No downsides to him. Fenrir, really good aggressive early game god. If you get a lead, you can kind of snowball, hard carry with your damage. Sobek, we've already talked about him. Emoja, if you're a great player, she's going to be insane. Running through A quickly. Achilles, I think, is just a solid character, really no downside. He just has a tough matchup into a lot of the top tier characters. Ares Aspect is just so much weaker than base Ares that can't put him any higher. Athena, she's just good. Bacchus, I think he's just good. Serbi's just good. Fenrir Aspect is, I think, just still a slightly worse way to play Fenrir. The CC is really good, but I think losing out on the damage just feels really bad. Mori's A with the caveat that her Aspect is bugged. Don't play Mori right now. She is bugged. Badly bugged. B tier, Bellona Aspect. Arrow's bow, incredible. She uses that very well. I think Bracken feels a little underwhelming in support. I think he feels much better in solo lane. Cupid Aspect, I think it's fine. Very meh. Geb Herc, Kepri Aspect, I think is still really good. The problem is I think he just has such bad matchups into like all these characters. And then just shout out On Her, Artemis in the C tier. They're fine. For middle lane, I'm going to start off by saying I think mid lane as a role is slightly underwhelming as a whole. So while I have overpowered mid-tier characters or mid lane characters as Agni, Hecate, and Merlin, I do not think that they are as overpowered as the other overpowered characters are in their role. I think they're all just good enough to like kind of pick them and be happy. But like Agni's damage doesn't feel too great. Hecate's damage doesn't feel too great. Merlin's early game still feels pretty underwhelming. He does scale into a really good late game character. So they're good. I just can't, you know, put them any higher in terms of like shouting them out as these are really good characters, pick them every game, just because of how underwhelming mid lane is, or mage items specifically. In the S tier though, Bari, Cuckoo, Ra, Mori without aspect, and Zeus. I think these are all just really good characters, kind of in like that same area as the OP characters where they just feel good to play. Nothing speaks out about them as being broken. They all have like a downside here or there, but like overall they're pretty good. A tier, Aladdin. I almost was curious about moving Aladdin up because I do think Aladdin with that strength build is really good right now. He can snowball really easily also. It's the reason I have Pele kind of in this A tier also, where she's not building the mage items, so I think she actually feels pretty good in mid. Poseidon, Soul Aspect, Vulcan, Yemoja, they just have their counters, where I think Vulcan's damage is a little just weird right now. I think Soul's been nerfed a few times, and so int items don't feel as good. Vulcan's just very counterable. A lot of the good other role characters are good into Vulcan, and then the Yemoja aspect kind of got gutted from where it was, where I still think it's playable, but it is significantly worse. B tier, these are characters with obvious weaknesses, but if they do, you know, if they do get picked into a perfect spot, they can still be really good. That's like the obvious Anubis shout out right there. I think Nuwa is one that I'm still unsure of, where I think she might even be worse than B tier. I just think she's so safe that you can kind of just pick her and be decently happy because you're not going to get farmed for the most part. Next up is Jungle. And I think Jungle actually feels pretty decent right now. I think Achilles, Aspect, Susanoo, and Thor all feel really good. None of them really feel that blink reliant, or if they do feel blink reliant, they can kind of snowball really easily with it. I was of the opinion that I thought Susanoo was even OP during the tank meta, just because he's gotten buffed so many times that he's almost back to like Smite 1 Susanoo with no beads Aegis on both backliners, so he just can kind of CC them or just one-shot them. So I think Susanoo is really good, and I think Achilles just farms so well, and then he just one-shots into the late game, and if he doesn't one-shot you, he gets you under that 40% where he can just execute you. So positive for both of them. They have a couple weaknesses where like an Achilles that's behind maybe can't one-shot somebody, but he still has execute. Susanoo, if he's behind, still has insane CC and insane safety. And then Thor without aspect, he just does a lot of damage. He has a lot of CC. He has a lot of utility. I'm a big fan of Thor without aspect in jungle. And then maybe a hot take. I know some people maybe don't think Aladdin is too strong. I think Aladdin is really strong right now. And I think Thana without aspect is in that same type of tier where maybe they aren't, you know, play every game, win every game, but they are play most games, win most games, unless you're just getting farmed or falling behind. Aladdin has a couple weaknesses of like really bad into Ares. And then Thana has a couple weaknesses where like you play him into a Sobek and he just anti-heals you and just solos you down, and it just feels like a pain. But they're still good enough characters where they are S tier. Willickson ranked is playable. If she gets off to a lead, she's very hard to play against. If she is behind, she is one of the worst characters in the game. Fenrir, still trying to see where Fenrir's build sits after this. I just cannot imagine this character being that bad just because of how good he could just build on hit like Kins and Golden Blade and then just be full tank and just one shot you still. Thor aspect, even after the nerf, I think still gets a shout out as an A tier character. Mostly just he does use tank items well enough, and then he does just enough base damage to be, you know, a threat. And then I think Thana just as a character is strong, so his aspect, even though I think it is weaker in jungle, and actually weaker period, I think it's still good enough to be in the A tier. And then B tier, Athena, Bellona aspect, Fenrir with aspect, Herc, Loki, Nem, Odin, and Pele. I think they're all good characters. They just have their downsides. And then the C tier, moving my cam for a second, you can see Poseidon and Nem. Poseidon, Nem, Mordred are all there. And then ending with the solo lane, your two overpowered characters are Mordred without aspect and Kabrakan, where I think these two characters are just phenomenal with what they do. If they get off to a lead, they will just 1v3 games, 1v4 games. And even if they don't have a lead, they're still a pain to deal with. So I think those two are both very, very strong. I think Achilles without aspect in solo lane is also very strong, where he only has to get you to 40%, and his damage is threatening, and he's very hard to deal with, and you feel like you don't do a ton of damage versus him because you don't, because of his passives and stuff. So I think Achilles is really good. Blown with Aspect, I just think she's so good early game that while her late game might not be as good, she's still such a threat in the early and mid portions of the game that she is good enough to be in the S tier. And then Odin Sobek, they farm well enough, and then they're just absolute menaces in team fights. Kind of like Kabrakan and Mordred with just slightly worse laning phase, that where Odin and Sobek are just menaces late game. They just don't get there as easily. A tier, Alma, I think after Aspect has been nerfed and they buffed up her base just a little bit and the items have changed a little bit, she became an A tier character. She's good. She's fine. Nothing great about her. Nothing horrible about her. Blown without an Aspect, I think she's a worse character, but she's still good. Serb, still getting a feel out for him, but I think he is just about an A tier character. That passive is broken. Hades, I think, is a little underrated right now, where I think just playing Hades, you just outclear most gods in the laning phase, and then late game, you are just insanely strong. Mordred with Aspect is definitely worse than Mordred without Aspect. It is kind of fun to play, though, but it is just outright worse. Thor Aspect, after the nerfs, still lands in A tier, but it is significantly worse from where he was with the Aspect. And then I can move my cam for you to see Pele and Ra in the C tier and in the B tier. But yeah, that's how the tier list is looking with OB7. And with OB8 just around the corner, we'll be updating this once I get a good feeling of how OB8's kind of laying out. But the issue is it's going to take a little bit of time just because of how big the changes are with OB8 and even with OB7. So this is the tier list. Let me know what you guys think down below. What did I miss on? What do you guys think is OP? What do you guys think is maybe a little underwhelming that I'm overrating? I'm curious to know what you guys think. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys have fun. I'll see you guys again next time. Peace.